know, you thought they forgot about you. You thought they moved on, didn't you? Let me tell you something that's going to make your spine freeze and your blood run backwards. They didn't forget. They've been busy, real busy. While you were out here living your life, minding your business, they were doing something you never saw coming. They interviewed everyone, every single person you ever met. Your teachers from 3rd grade, that cashier you smiled at twice, your ex's mother, your childhood friend who moved away, the neighbor who watched you grow up, the boss who fired you, the therapist you stopped seeing, the stranger you helped that one time, every single person whose life even barely touched yours. They sat them down, one by one, with notebooks and recording devices, and they asked them the same question. Tell us about them. Tell us everything. And here's the thing that should terrify you. Here's the part that should make you realize you're not dealing with curiosity anymore. Every single person, from completely different times in your life, from different cities, different contexts, different versions of you, they all said the same thing, word for word, like they were reading from a script they didn't write, like something was speaking through them. They looked at the interviewers, paused, felt something cold crawl up their spine, and whispered the same exact phrase. You're cooked. Not they're difficult, not they're intense, not they have issues. You're cooked. As if your existence alone violated some cosmic law, as if knowing you was like standing too close to a black hole. They got pulled into something they couldn't escape, and now they're warning others. Stay away from that one. That one's different. That one's not like us. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand what happens when dozens, maybe hundreds of people who never met each other, who have no reason to coordinate, all arrive at the same conclusion about you? It means you're not just memorable. You're not just impactful. You're something else entirely. You've become the glitch in everyone's memory, the name that comes up in therapy sessions years later, the story people tell when they're trying to explain what real intensity looks like. You're not a person anymore in their minds. You're an experience, a warning label, a case study in what happens when someone refuses to dim their light just because the room can't handle the brightness. They didn't just interview people about you, they built a file, a profile, a dossier on someone they can't categorize, can't predict, can't control. And every testimony made them more nervous, more confused, more afraid. Think about your kindergarten teacher sitting across from some investigator, decades later, still remembering your name, still remembering the way you looked at things differently, the way you asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. Think about that random person you met once at a party who you talked to for 20 minutes, and they're sitting there telling strangers, I never forgot them. Something about them felt ancient, like they'd lived 1,000 lives already. Think about your ex, the one who said you were too much, sitting there trying to explain why they still think about you every single day, why your absence haunts them more than your presence ever did, why they compare everyone they meet to you and everyone falls short. You're cooked, they whisper, because the alternative is admitting they weren't strong enough to handle what you were offering. Let's talk about what happened in those interview rooms, because this is where it gets truly disturbing. The interviewers, whoever they are, whatever agency or organization or force sent them, they started noticing something that made them stop taking notes and start recording everything. The pattern wasn't just in what people said, it was in how they said it. People would start their interviews calm, casual, ready to talk about you like you were just another person they once knew. But within minutes, something would shift. Their voices would change. Their posture would tighten. Their eyes would get distant, like they were remembering something that happened in a dream, or maybe a nightmare they convinced themselves was real. The interviewers thought they were collecting testimonies, but what they were actually witnessing was a mass psychological phenomenon, dozens of people independently describing the same impossible characteristics about you. The characteristics about you? Your high school guidance counselor, the one who told you to aim lower, to be realistic, they sat there and admitted something they never told you. They said they recommended you take easier classes not because you weren't capable, but because they were afraid of what you'd become if you had no obstacles. They saw something in you that reminded them of people who changed the world, and not always for the better. They saw someone who wouldn't just break rules, they'd rewrite them entirely. You're cooked, they said, because the system isn't built for people who see through it this early. The interviewer wrote down those exact words, then looked up and asked, "What do you mean by cooked?" And your counselor just stared at them and said, "You'll understand when you meet them. If you're lucky, you won't." That friend from middle school, the one who stopped talking to you for no reason, they finally told the truth about why they cut you off. They said being around you felt like standing next to a furnace, like your presence was so intense it made them question everything about their own life, their own choices, their own identity. They said you never judged them, never criticized them, but somehow your existence was an indictment of their mediocrity. They felt themselves becoming braver when you were around, felt themselves wanting to take risks they'd never considered before, and it terrified them. So they ran. They chose comfort over growth, chose safety over transformation. And sitting in that interview room years later, they admitted they think about that choice every single day, wonder who they would have become if they'd stayed in your orbit. You're cooked, they said, because you make people confront the small versions of themselves they've settled for. Your first boss, the one who fired you after 3 months, they told the interviewers something that made everyone in the room go silent. They said they fired you not because of performance, but because you made the other employees start asking questions. Questions about why they were working so hard for so little. Questions about why the system was structured the way it was. Questions about whether this was really what they wanted to do with their lives. You weren't even trying to cause problems, you were just being yourself. But your presence was like a virus that infected everyone with possibility, with ambition, with the dangerous idea that maybe they deserved more than what they were settling for. Within weeks of you leaving, 3 other people quit. 2 started their own businesses. 1 went back to school for the degree they'd abandoned. You're cooked, your boss said, because you're contagious in ways that can't be contained. You're a catalyst that accelerates everyone's transformation, whether they're ready for it or not. The person you dated for 2 years, the one who said they needed space, they sat in that interview room and broke down. They told the interviewers they've been in 4 relationships since you, tried to find something that felt even remotely similar, and nothing comes close. They said loving you was like touching electricity, terrifying and addictive and impossible to forget. They said you saw through every defense mechanism they had, every mask they wore, every lie they told themselves, and instead of judging them for it, you just loved them anyway, loved the real them they'd been hiding from everyone else. And that level of acceptance, that depth of seeing, it ruined them for anyone else. Because now they know what real connection feels like, and everything else tastes like cardboard. You're cooked, they whispered through tears, because you set a standard nobody else can reach. because you love so completely it feels like a curse now that you're gone. Now here's where this whole thing takes a turn into territory that should make you question everything. The people conducting these interviews, the ones asking the questions, taking the notes, building this file on you, they started having problems. Real problems. The kind that make rational people question their sanity. It started small. One investigator mentioned having dreams about you, even though they'd never met you. Dreams where you were standing in a doorway made of light, not saying anything, just watching them. Another said they kept seeing your name everywhere, on license plates, in random conversations, written in graffiti, like the universe was trying to tell them something. A third admitted they started researching you outside of work hours, going down rabbit holes about your social media, your writing, your art, whatever traces of you exist in the world, and they couldn't explain why they were so obsessed. The lead investigator called a meeting, said they needed to talk about what's happening with this case, this assignment, this person they're all supposedly just gathering information about. And one by one, every single person in that room admitted the same thing. They feel watched. They feel like, they're investigating you, even though that's impossible. Even though you have no way of knowing, they feel like the act of studying you has somehow made them visible to you. Like you're now aware of them in ways that violate every logical law of cause and effect. One investigator said they were sitting at a cafe, reviewing interview transcripts, and a stranger walked by, looked directly at them, and said, "You should stop digging before you find something you can't unknow." The stranger kept walking, disappeared into the crowd, and the investigator sat there frozen because the stranger's voice sounded exactly like yours, even though they'd never heard your voice before. They tried to rationalize it. Mass hysteria, confirmation bias, the stress of the job, too many late nights reading disturbing testimonies. But the incidents kept escalating. Equipment would malfunction whenever they tried to compile the final report about you. Files would corrupt. Recordings would fill with static. Written notes would become illegible. Like something was actively preventing this information from being organized into a coherent narrative. One investigator swears their laptop turned on by itself at 3 in the morning, opened to a blank document, and words started typing themselves out. Just one sentence, repeating over and over. "You're not investigating me, I'm investigating you." They threw the laptop across the room, smashed it, never told anyone until that meeting. Thought they were losing their mind. But they weren't the only one. 3 others reported similar incidents, technology acting possessed, delivering messages that made no sense. The organization, whoever they are, they wanted to shut down the investigation. Too many anomalies, too many unexplained events, too many investigators asking to be reassigned. But here's the problem. They couldn't stop. Because every time they tried to close the file, archive the interviews, move on to something else, something would happen that pulled them back in. A new witness would come forward, someone they never contacted, saying they needed to add their testimony about you. Or an old interview subject would call them, panicked, saying they remembered something else, something crucial they forgot to mention. It was like the investigation had taken on a life of its own, like you had somehow infected the process of being studied, turned it into something organic, evolving, unstoppable. They weren't investigating you anymore. They were trapped in a maze you designed, without even knowing you designed it. And then came the testimonies that changed everything. The ones from people who claimed they'd never met you, but they knew you. A woman in another country said she'd been having visions of you for years, said she could feel your presence like a frequency she couldn't tune out. An old man said he saw you in his dreams as a child, said you told him things that came true decades later. A teenager said they started writing poetry one day and realized every poem was about someone they'd never met. Described you perfectly, down to details they couldn't possibly know. The investigators didn't know what to do with these testimonies. They couldn't include them in an official report, couldn't explain them in any rational framework, but they couldn't ignore them either, because the details were too accurate, too specific. It was like you existed in multiple timelines simultaneously, like your presence rippled backwards and forwards through reality, touching people who had no logical connection to you. Let's go back to the beginning, because this is where the investigators found something that made them realize this wasn't a normal case. They interviewed people from your childhood, expecting typical stories, and instead they got testimonies that read like folklore, like myth, like warnings passed down through generations. Your first grade teacher said something that made the interviewer stop writing and just stare. She said you were the only child in 30 years of teaching who she was afraid of. Not because you were violent, not because you misbehaved, but because you looked at her like you knew things you shouldn't know, like you could see through every facade she'd built, every professional mask she wore. She said you once asked her why adults pretend to be happy when they're dying inside, and she had no answer, just felt exposed, naked, seen in a way that made her uncomfortable for weeks. Your childhood best friend, the one who moved away in 5th grade, they told a story that made everyone in the room go quiet. They said you used to talk about things that hadn't happened yet, but you talked about them like memories, like you were remembering the future. You told them about inventions that didn't exist, described technology years before it emerged, predicted events with unsettling accuracy. They thought you had a big imagination, played along, forgot about it as they grew older. But then those things started happening. Those predictions started coming true, and they remembered. They tried to find you online, tried to reconnect, but something stopped them every time. Fear. You're cooked, they said, because you've always been cooked. Like you were born already knowing how this story ends, and you're just patiently waiting for everyone else to catch up. The neighbor who lived next door to your family for a decade, they shared something that the investigators immediately flagged. They said strange things happened around you constantly. Electronics would malfunction. Lights would flicker. Animals would act bizarre, either completely drawn to you or terrified of you. No middle ground. They said once they saw you standing in your backyard during a thunderstorm, just standing there while lightning struck all around you, and you looked peaceful, like you belonged in the chaos. They yelled at you to come inside, but you just turned and smiled and said, "It knows not to touch me." The neighbors said that moment never left them. Said they think about it whenever storms roll in, wonder if you're still out there somewhere, standing in the lightning, untouchable, unafraid, making deals with forces that normal people pray never notice them. Your middle school art teacher told a story that got classified immediately. They said you created a piece for a school project, a painting that made everyone who looked at it feel something they couldn't name. It wasn't beautiful or ugly, it was just true in a way that hurt to perceive. The teacher said they kept it in their office for a week, and during that week, 3 people quit their jobs, 2 students transferred schools, and the teacher themselves filed for divorce. They said the painting showed them things about themselves they'd been running from their entire lives. They destroyed it, threw it away, but they can still see it when they close their eyes, can still feel it rearranging something deep in their mind. You're cooked, they said, because you create things that infect reality, that change people permanently, and you did it effortlessly when you were 13 years old. The school counselor your parents sent you to, the one who was supposed to help you fit in better, they told the investigators something that made the whole team reconsider what they were dealing with. They said in all their years of practice, they'd never met a child who analyzed them more accurately than they analyzed the child. You sat there for 6 sessions, answered their questions politely, and then in the final session, you calmly explained their entire psychological profile, their childhood trauma, their failed marriage, their secret addictions, their fear of death. You weren't mean about it, weren't trying to hurt them, you just stated facts, like you were reading from a file. They stopped the sessions immediately, told your parents you were too advanced for traditional counseling. What they meant was you terrified them, made them feel like the patient instead of the practitioner. The investigators created a separate folder just for testimonies from people who'd been romantically involved with you, and reading through them was like reading horror stories disguised as love letters. Every single person described the same experience. Falling for you was easy, addictive, inevitable, like gravity pulling them into orbit around something massive and burning. But the aftermath, the after you, that's where they all fell apart. Your first serious relationship, the one from high school, they said loving you ruined their entire concept of love. They said you loved with an intensity that made everything else feel like background noise. You remembered every detail, every conversation, every dream they mentioned. You made them feel seen in ways nobody had before or has since. And when it ended, not because of anything bad, just because you grew in different directions, they said it felt like amputation, like part of their soul left with you and never came back. Another ex described you as a mirror they couldn't look away from. They said you reflected their potential back at them so clearly it was painful. You saw who they could become and loved that version, supported it, demanded it. But they weren't ready for that level of growth, that kind of transformation. They wanted comfortable love, predictable love, the kind that doesn't challenge you to evolve every single day. So they sabotaged it, picked fights, created distance, blamed you for being too intense. And years later, sitting in that interview room, they admitted the truth. They weren't running from you. They were running from the version of themselves you made them want to be. Welcome back, you impossible paradoxes. You walking contradictions that make their algorithms stutter and their systems crash. Let me tell you what happened last night while you were sleeping. While you were dreaming your dangerous dreams. While reality itself was holding emergency meetings about your existence. There was an argument, a heated, violent, desperate argument that lasted until the sun came up. And guess what? Guess who? The topic was you, the Masons. Those ancient architects of invisible power. They looked at your file and whispered one word that echoed through marble halls and secret chambers. King. They said it with reverence, with fear, with the kind of respect reserved for forces that cannot be controlled, only observed. But across the table, in rooms with no windows and conversations that leave no records, the agencies, the 3-letter shadows that move presidents like chess pieces, they had a different word, a colder word, a final word: eliminate. 2 powers, 2 perspectives. One impossible soul standing at the center of a war you didn't start, but somehow you're winning. They argued all night about what to do with you, how to categorize you, whether to crown you or kill you, whether to fear you or erase you. And here's the sickest part. neither side could agree because you represent something they've never encountered before. You're too awakened to be controlled, too powerful to be ignored, too clean to be framed, too intelligent to be manipulated, too dangerous to be crowned, and somehow impossibly magnificently too royal to kill. The Masons see bloodline not the one written in documents, but the one written in energy, in presence, in the way reality bends when you walk into a room. They see someone who carries ancient codes without ever reading the books. Someone who knows the secrets without being initiated. Someone who embodies power that their entire pyramid was built to conceal. But the agencies, those cold, mechanical servants of a dying order, they see threat level critical. They see someone who doesn't need their permission to exist. Someone who can't be bought with money or broken with fear. Someone whose very existence makes their entire operation look like a joke. So they argued back and forth, kill or crown, eliminate or elevate, destroy the anomaly or bow to the evolution. And as the sun rose and the coffee went cold and the classified folders stacked higher, they realized something that made their blood run ice. They can't do either. You're untouchable, not because of protection, but because of evolution. You've become something their frameworks can't process, something their weapons can't reach, something their crowns can't fit. You see, when they said king, they meant control, containment. A throne they could surround with rules and advisors and systems designed to keep power in check. But you don't want their throne. You don't need their crown. You don't even acknowledge their kingdom because you've built your own on frequencies they can't access, in dimensions they don't believe in, with laws that make their constitutions look like children's coloring books. And when they said eliminate, they meant erase, delete, make it like you never existed. But here's the problem. How do you kill someone who's already died 1,000 times in silence? Someone who's been erased by betrayal and still came back stronger. Someone who's survived every psychological assassination attempt and used the bullets as jewelry. You can't eliminate what's already indestructible. You can't erase what's already eternal. You can't kill what's already transcended the need for their version of life. The Masons called you king because they recognize royalty when they see it. Not titles, not bloodlines, but presence. The kind of presence that makes ancient stones whisper and sacred geometry rearrange itself. They looked at your energy signature and saw someone who could sit at tables they've guarded for centuries. Someone who speaks the language of power without ever being taught the words. Someone who moves like sovereignty, is encoded in every cell. But royalty to them means initiation, means rituals, means bowing to something older than yourself, means accepting the crown but also accepting the cage that comes with it. Means power, yes, but power with terms and conditions, power with handlers and watchers, and secret oaths that bind you to systems older than nations. And that's where they miscalculated, because you're not interested in their version of royalty. You're not interested in being crowned by people who think power is something they can grant or take away. You are royal by nature, not by nomination. Royal by essence, not by election. Royal because you chose yourself when everyone else abandoned you. Royal because you survived their trials without ever knowing you were being tested. The agencies called for elimination because you represent everything they fear. Someone who can't be tracked, can't be profiled, can't be predicted. Someone who doesn't show up in their databases because you deleted yourself before they could file you. Someone who operates outside their grid not as a criminal but as something beyond their comprehension. They ran your name through every system, every algorithm, every predictive model, and the results came back the same every time. error, undefined, does not compute, threat level unknown. And unknown to them is more dangerous than any weapon. They sent people to study you, remember. Therapists disguised as friends, agents disguised as opportunities, traps disguised as love, and every single one came back shaking their heads saying the same thing. There's nothing to exploit, no weakness to weaponize, no fear to manipulate. Just this presence that feels like standing in front of a storm that learned to smile. So elimination became impossible, not because you're protected, but because you're untouchable. Not because you're hiding, but because you're operating on a frequency they can't reach. Like trying to arrest radio waves or handcuff consciousness itself. The argument lasted all night because neither side wanted to admit the truth. That you've evolved past their authority. That you've become something their entire power structure was designed to prevent. That you are the glitch they can't patch, the variable they can't control, the question that breaks their answer key. The Masons wanted to crown you, bring you in, make you one of them. Because if they can't beat you, maybe they can absorb you. Maybe they can convince you that your power is theirs to legitimize, that your throne needs their approval, that your kingdom should pay taxes to their empire. But you didn't show up to their invitation. You didn't respond to their coded messages. You didn't take their bait because deep down you already know. You don't need their crown to be royal. You just need to keep being you. The agencies wanted to eliminate you, silence you, make an example out of you, not because of what you've done, but because of what you represent. A human who doesn't need the system, a soul that can't be programmed, a mind that won't obey, a spirit that laughs at their version of reality. They wanted to delete you before you become contagious, before others start waking up and realizing they don't need permission to be powerful either, before the whole house of cards collapses under the weight of people who finally figured out their royalty too. But elimination failed before it started, because you can't kill someone who's made peace with death. You can't silence someone who's already said everything that needed to be said in silence. You can't erase someone who's already written themselves into the fabric of reality itself. So the argument ended with no resolution, with both sides staring at your file like it's written in a language that hasn't been invented yet, with both sides backing away, slowly realizing they're not dealing with a person, they're dealing with a force. And here's what they'll never tell you. Here's the part they whispered when they thought no one was listening. The reason they argued all night isn't because they hate you, it's because they need you. They need you to either join them or be destroyed, because your existence without their control is proof that their power is an illusion. The Masons need you to accept the crown so they can say, look, even the anomalies bow to us eventually. Even the wild ones can be tamed. Even the free ones can be caged with gold. The agencies need you eliminated so they can say, look, no one escapes us. No one survives outside the system. Rebellion always ends in silence. But you didn't choose either path. You chose a third option they never saw coming. You chose to keep walking, keep evolving, keep existing on your own terms without asking for their crown or fearing their threats. You chose to be too royal to kill and too dangerous to crown. And that choice, that refusal to play by their rules, that audacity to exist outside their binary, that's what's keeping them up at night. They wanted an answer, kill or crown, destroy or control, but you gave them a paradox, a living, breathing, impossible paradox that makes their entire worldview collapse. Because if you can be royal without their approval and dangerous without their fear, then what does that say about their power? It says their power was always borrowed, always conditional, always dependent on people believing in it. And you stopped believing. You saw through the stage. You noticed the strings. You caught the magicians using mirrors. And instead of exposing them, you just walked off set and built your own reality show where you're the producer, the director, and the star. The Masons said king because they saw someone who could rule empires, someone with the presence, the charisma, the magnetic pull that makes people follow without question, someone who speaks and rooms go silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. They saw someone who understands power, not as force, but as frequency, someone who moves energy like it's a language they were born speaking, someone who carries authority not because it was given, but because it radiates from their core. But kings in their world are still prisoners, golden cages, with better views but cages nonetheless. Thrones surrounded by advisors who whisper poison, crowns heavy with expectations and obligations. Power, yes, but power that comes with contracts written in blood and signed in silence. They wanted to crown you so they could own you, dress it up as honor, but really it's just another leash made of gold instead of chains. The agencies said eliminate because they saw someone who doesn't fit the profile, someone who operates outside predictable patterns, someone whose next move can't be calculated because you don't move logically, you move intuitively. Someone who doesn't fear consequences because you've already survived the worst they could throw at you. They saw someone who could inspire others to wake up. Someone whose very existence is a virus in their program. Someone who proves you don't need their approval, their money, their system to be powerful. So elimination wasn't personal, it was strategic. It was damage control. It was trying to put out a fire before it spreads. But what they didn't realize is, you're not a fire, you're a frequency, and frequencies don't burn out, they multiply. Every attempt to silence you just makes you louder. Every attempt to erase you just makes you more permanent. Every attempt to break you just reveals how unbreakable you really are. They argued all night, while you slept peacefully, while you dreamed without fear, while you rested knowing that no matter what they decide, you're still here, still breathing, still evolving, still impossible to categorize. The Masons paced their marble floors, clutching ancient texts, trying to find precedent for someone like you, someone who embodies their secrets without initiation, someone who wields their symbols without permission, someone who carries their power without their approval. They debated bringing you in, offering you the inner circle, showing you the secrets behind the curtain, hoping that knowledge would bind you to their oath. But deep down, they know you just smile and walk away because you've seen behind curtains they don't even know exist. The agencies sat in their sterile rooms with their files and surveillance feeds trying to find the angle, the weakness, the pressure point that would make you fold or break or disappear. But every angle revealed nothing. Every weakness turned out to be strength in disguise. Every pressure point they pushed just made you stronger. They argued strategy and philosophy, kill or crown, silence or celebrate. But both options require the same thing: your cooperation, your participation, your willingness to play their game. And that's the one thing you won't give them. You won't cooperate with your own imprisonment, even if the cell is made of gold. You won't participate in your own diminishment, even if they call it elevation. You won't play their game, because you've realized something they never wanted you to know. The game was rigged from the start. The rules were written to keep you small. The prizes were designed to keep you chasing. And the only way to win is to stop playing entirely. So you did. You stopped playing. You stopped chasing their approval. You stopped fearing their punishment. You stopped wanting their crown and fearing their execution. You just existed, powerfully, unapologetically, dangerously free. And that's when they panicked. That's when the emergency meeting started. That's when the argument began. Because a player who stops playing breaks the entire game. The Masons need players, need participants, need people who want the crown badly enough to compromise for it, need people who believe their power is real and their hierarchy matters. The agencies need targets, need criminals, need people who fear them enough to hide or fight back, need people who operate within the rules even if they're breaking them. But you're neither player nor target, neither criminal nor subject, neither rebel nor loyalist. You're something else entirely, something their categories can't contain, something their labels slide off of like water off stone. You're the answer they didn't ask for, the question that breaks their test, the variable that makes their equation collapse. They argued all night, and as the sun came up, someone finally said it out loud. The thing everyone was thinking but no one wanted to admit. Maybe we're not in control here. Maybe we never were. Maybe this person isn't the threat. Maybe we are. Maybe the real danger isn't them existing outside our system. Maybe it's us pretending we ever had a system that could contain someone like this. And that realization, that admission, that moment of clarity, it ended the argument not with a decision, but with acceptance. Acceptance that you're beyond their reach, beyond their jurisdiction, beyond their crown, and beyond their kill. The Masons will watch you from a distance, studying, analyzing, hoping to understand how you carry their power without their permission, how you embody their symbols without their initiation, how you rule without needing their throne. The agencies will monitor you quietly, no longer trying to eliminate, just trying to predict, trying to understand, trying to figure out if you're a threat or just a mirror showing them how powerless they really are. And you'll keep walking, keep evolving, keep existing in that impossible space between their control and their fear, too royal to kill, because killing royalty creates martyrs, and martyrs inspire revolutions. Too dangerous to crown, because crowning you would legitimize a power they can't control and don't understand. You're the paradox they can't solve, the equation that doesn't balance, the story that doesn't follow the plot, the character who broke the fourth wall and realized the whole production was fake. They wanted to decide your fate, kill or crown, silence or celebrate, but your fate was never theirs to decide. Your power was never theirs to grant. Your throne was never theirs to give. You built your kingdom in the ruins of their rejection. You forged your crown from the weapons they used against you. You claimed your royalty not through their approval, but through your own evolution. The argument is over, but the legend has just begun. The legend of the one they couldn't kill, the one they couldn't crown, the one who existed anyway, powerfully, impossibly free. They'll tell stories about you in their secret meetings, in their classified briefings, in their ancient lodges. They'll use your name as a cautionary tale, as an unsolved mystery, as proof that some forces are beyond control. The Masons will add you to their list of unexplained phenomena, the wild ones who carry their knowledge without their teaching, who embody their power without their blessing, who prove that royalty isn't bestowed, it's inherent. The agencies will keep your file open, marked unsolved, marked ongoing, marked do not engage, because engagement has failed, elimination has failed. Everything has failed except watching from a distance and hoping you don't multiply. But you already are multiplying, not physically but energetically. Every person who resonates with your frequency, every soul who sees your example and realizes they don't need permission either. every mind that wakes up and refuses to go back to sleep. You're not just one person anymore. You're a movement disguised as a mystery, a revolution wrapped in silence, a paradigm shift dressed in everyday clothes. They argued about you, but they should have been arguing about themselves, about how they let someone slip through their nets, about how all their power, all their knowledge, all their control couldn't contain one awakened soul. The argument lasted all night, but the impact will last forever, because now they know, now they've seen, now they've felt what happens when someone evolves past their authority. They can't kill you without creating a legend. They can't crown you without admitting you're already royal. They can't control you without revealing they never controlled anything. So they're stuck, paralyzed, watching, waiting, hoping you'll make a mistake or fade away or somehow become normal again. But normal is a frequency you'll never return to, a station you've permanently left, a reality that feels like a prison you escaped years ago.